November 24th, 1979. Thanksgiving Day in Riverside, Pennsylvania. The Thornwell family gathered for their traditional holiday dinner at the matriarch's home on Willow Creek Road. By midnight, 13 members of the family lay dead in what would become the deadliest family massacre in Pennsylvania history. The killer? Someone they had invited to the table. Margaret Thornwell woke early on Thanksgiving morning, as she always did. At 68, she took pride in hosting the family's annual gathering at her two-story colonial home. The house had been in the Thornwell family for 3 generations, and Margaret had insisted on maintaining every tradition her mother had established decades earlier. By 9 a.m., she was already in the kitchen, preparing the turkey. Her daughter-in-law, Patricia, arrived shortly after with Margaret's 3 grandchildren, Daniel, age 12, Amanda, age 9, and little Sarah, just 6 years old. Patricia's husband, Margaret's eldest son, Robert, would arrive later after finishing his shift at the steel mill. "Mother Thornwell, the house looks beautiful," Patricia said, admiring the fall decorations Margaret had spent days arranging. "It should," Margaret replied curtly. "Unlike some people, I don't wait until the last minute to prepare for important family occasions." Patricia's smile faltered slightly, but she said nothing. She was accustomed to Margaret's barbed comments. By 11 a.m., more family members began arriving. Robert's younger brother Michael came with his wife Jennifer and their 4 children, twins Matthew and Michael Jr., age 10, and daughters Rebecca, age 8, and little Emma, age 5. The house filled with the sounds of children playing, adults chatting, and the rich smell of roasting turkey. One person was notably absent. Vincent Thornwell, Margaret's youngest son, still hadn't arrived by noon. At 45 years old, Vincent was the family's persistent disappointment. Unlike his older brothers who had steady jobs, wives, and children, Vincent was unemployed, unmarried, and still living in his mother's basement. Margaret checked her watch impatiently. "Where is that boy?" "Dinner is at 2 o'clock sharp. He knows the schedule." "Maybe he's not coming," Robert suggested, pouring himself coffee. "Would that really be so terrible?" Margaret shot him a sharp look. "He's family. He belongs here." But the truth was more complicated. Vincent had been asked not to come to last year's Thanksgiving after an incident where he'd gotten drunk and berated Robert in front of the children. The brothers had never gotten along, but the tension had intensified over the years as Robert's success highlighted Vincent's failures. Margaret had reluctantly banned Vincent from family gatherings for nearly a year. But 2 weeks ago, after Vincent had begged and promised to behave, she'd relented and invited him back. It was a decision that would haunt the investigation for decades. At 1:30 p.m., Vincent finally arrived. He pulled up in his rusted 1972 Chevrolet, the car backfiring loudly enough to startle the children playing in the front yard. He emerged wearing wrinkled clothes and carrying a brown paper bag that everyone knew contained cheap whiskey. Margaret met him at the door, her face tight with disapproval. "You're late, and you're not bringing that into my house." Vincent's jaw clenched, but he left the bag in his car. As he walked through the front door, his brother Michael made a show of moving his children away from their uncle. "Uncle Vincent!" little Daniel called out, running toward him. "Daniel, come here," Robert said firmly, intercepting his son. The message was clear. Vincent was tolerated, not welcomed. Dinner was served at precisely 2 p.m., as Margaret had planned. 13 people crowded around the extended dining table. Margaret at the head, her 3 sons and their families arranged around her. Vincent was seated at the far end, physically and symbolically separated from the rest. The meal began with strained pleasantries. Robert talked about his recent promotion at work. Michael mentioned his plans to expand his contracting business. Patricia described Amanda's academic achievements. Vincent sat in silence, drinking ice water and picking at his food. Then, Margaret made the comment that would prove fatal. "It's so wonderful to see my boys doing so well," she said, smiling at Robert and Michael. "Building families, building careers, building futures." She paused, then added with casual cruelty, "Some children make their parents proud." The implication hung in the air like poison. Vincent's fork clattered onto his plate. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, dear," Margaret said innocently. "I'm simply expressing gratitude for my blessings." "Your blessings?" Vincent repeated, his voice rising. "You mean your real sons, the ones who aren't disappointments?" Robert sighed heavily. "Vincent, don't start." Don't start? Vincent's laugh was bitter. I've heard this my entire life. Robert the successful, Michael the family man, and Vincent the failure. If the shoe fits, Michael muttered. Patricia quickly tried to redirect the conversation. Who wants pie? I made 3 different kinds, but Vincent wasn't done. He pointed at his brothers. You know what's funny? I'm the one who's here every day. I'm the one who fixes things when they break. I'm the one who drives her to doctor's appointments. Where are you two when she needs help? We have jobs, Robert said flatly. We have responsibilities. And I don't? No, Robert said. You don't. You're 45 years old, living in our mother's basement, with no job, no prospects, no future. You're a parasite. The children had gone silent, sensing the adult tension. Jennifer and Patricia exchanged worried glances. Vincent stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. I'm done. Good, Michael said. Leave. But Vincent didn't leave. He walked out of the dining room and headed toward the basement stairs. Margaret called after him. Where are you going? To get some air, Vincent replied, his voice eerily calm now. What nobody at that table knew was that Vincent Thornwell had been preparing for this moment for months. In the basement where he lived, Vincent had accumulated an arsenal. Over the past year, he'd purchased 4 firearms, using money scraped together from odd jobs and Margaret's reluctant handouts. He'd also been stockpiling ammunition. Detective Frank Morrison would later piece together Vincent's preparation timeline during the investigation. Vincent had bought his first gun, a .22 caliber rifle, in January 1979. The second, a .38 revolver, came in April, a 12-gauge shotgun in July, and finally a 9mm pistol in October. He'd been methodical, deliberate. He'd practiced at a shooting range 40 miles away where nobody knew his name. He'd studied the layout of his mother's house, noting sight lines and escape routes. Most chillingly, he'd written detailed notes about his family members, describing their habits, their schedules, their vulnerabilities. Police would find these notes later, bound in a red notebook hidden beneath Vincent's mattress. The final entry was dated November 23, 1979, the day before Thanksgiving. Tomorrow they'll see. Tomorrow they'll understand what they created. Vincent returned from the basement at approximately 3:15 p.m. In his hands, he carried the .22 rifle. Patricia saw him first. She was in the kitchen, preparing coffee, when Vincent appeared in the doorway. For a split second, she thought he was showing off a hunting rifle, something to prove his masculine competence. Then he raised the barrel and fired. The first shot hit Patricia in the chest. She collapsed without a sound, coffee cups shattering around her. The gunshot brought everyone running from different directions. Robert appeared in the kitchen doorway first, his face registering shock and disbelief in the instant before Vincent shot him twice in the head. Chaos erupted. Children screamed. Michael tried to reach his brother, shouting, "Vincent, stop! What are you doing?" Vincent shot him in the throat. Margaret, hearing the gunfire, rushed from the living room where she'd been sitting with the younger children. "Vincent! Vincent, put that down!" He turned toward his mother, the woman who had birthed him, raised him, and spent 45 years reminding him of his inadequacy. He pulled the trigger. Margaret fell in the hallway, blood spreading across the cream-colored carpet she'd just had cleaned. Jennifer Thornwell grabbed her 4 children and tried to run for the back door. Vincent pursued them into the den, methodically firing as they scrambled. Jennifer shielded her daughters with her body, but Vincent simply walked closer and shot through her. The children huddled behind the sofa. Vincent knelt down and executed them one by one. Matthew, Michael Jr., Rebecca, Emma. 4 shots, 4 deaths. Only 3 children remained, Daniel, Amanda, and Sarah, who had hidden upstairs in a bedroom closet when the shooting started. Vincent searched the house systematically. He called out to them in an almost gentle voice, "Come out, children. It's over now. It's all over." He found them in Daniel's bedroom closet, huddled together. Daniel, at 12, tried to shield his younger sisters. "Uncle Vincent, please," he whispered. "Please don't." Vincent stared at them for a long moment. Then he raised the rifle. 3 more shots echoed through the house. By 3:45 p.m., 13 members of the Thornwell family lay dead. Vincent had used 31 rounds from multiple weapons, moving through the house like a machine, showing neither mercy nor hesitation. When the ammunition was exhausted, Vincent walked calmly to the living room. He sat down in his mother's favorite armchair, the one he'd never been allowed to use. He picked up the telephone and dialed 911. "This is Vincent Thornwell at 2847 Willow Creek Road," he said, his voice perfectly steady. "I've just killed my family. All of them. You should send someone." Police arrived at 4:02 p.m. to find Vincent sitting on the front porch, smoking a cigarette. He offered no resistance when Detective Morrison placed him in handcuffs. "Is anyone alive in there?" Morrison asked. "No," Vincent replied flatly. "I made sure." What Morrison found inside the Thornwell house would haunt him for the rest of his career. Bodies in every room, blood on every surface, children sprawled where they'd tried to hide. The Thanksgiving table still set with half-eaten food. The crime scene photographer broke down after documenting the children's bodies. He never worked another homicide case. Forensic analysis revealed the calculated nature of Vincent's attack. He'd reloaded multiple times, switching weapons as each ran empty. The trajectory of bullets showed he'd moved methodically, room to room, ensuring no survivors. But the most disturbing evidence came from Vincent's basement room. Detective Morrison expected to find evidence of sudden rage, a spontaneous explosion of violence. Instead, he found months of planning. The red notebook detailed Vincent's grievances against each family member. Page after page of perceived slights, insults, and rejections spanning decades. About Robert. "He called me worthless at Christmas 1977, said I'd never amount to anything. He was smiling when he said it." About Michael. "Told his kids not to hug me. Said I smelled like failure. His children used to love me." About Margaret. "She introduced me to her church friends as my son who lives at home. Not my son, just the one who lives at home. Like I'm furniture." The notebook also contained a detailed plan for Thanksgiving 1979. Vincent had anticipated the family's arrival times, seating arrangements, even the likely topics of conversation. He'd planned for multiple scenarios, including escape routes if police arrived quickly. He'd never intended to escape. The final page read simply, "They created this. They fed it. They watered it. Now they can harvest it." Vincent Thornwell's trial began in March 1980 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The prosecution sought the death penalty for all 13 murders. Vincent's defense team argued insanity. They brought in psychiatrists who testified about Vincent's deteriorating mental state, his feelings of inadequacy, his social isolation. They painted a picture of a man systematically broken by decades of family rejection. The prosecution countered with the notebook, the weapon purchases, the methodical execution. This wasn't insanity, they argued. This was revenge. On the witness stand, Vincent showed no emotion. When asked why he'd killed the children, his answer chilled the courtroom. They would have grown up like their parents. The cycle would have continued. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. They found Vincent Thornwell guilty on all 13 counts of first-degree murder. The three-judge panel sentenced him to 13 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Vincent showed no reaction to the verdict. As guards led him away, he said only one thing to the courtroom: "You still don't understand." The Thornwell family massacre devastated Riverside's close-knit community. The house at 2847 Willow Creek Road stood empty for years. No one wanted to buy the murder house. Eventually, the property was demolished. A small park stands there now with a memorial plaque listing the 13 victims' names. Local residents leave flowers there every Thanksgiving, but the case's impact extended far beyond Riverside. It became a landmark study in family violence, featured in psychology textbooks and criminal justice courses. Researchers analyzed how years of subtle psychological abuse and social rejection could transform into catastrophic violence. Vincent Thornwell remained in prison until his death from cancer in 2018, 49 years after the murders. He never expressed remorse. In his few interviews, he maintained that his family had brought their fate upon themselves. Despite the thorough investigation, several aspects of the Thornwell case remained disturbing mysteries. The red notebook contained references to other family members who didn't attend the 1979 Thanksgiving dinner. Take just 1 second to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Your support means more than anything.